Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Conversations with the Feathered Serpent. Remember to like and subscribe, and more importantly, comment and engage with us. We are out to find those that our messages really resonate with and build our tribe. Remember, these conversations tend to flow into one another. So different episodes will actually be one full conversation that I've had with him, and we've had to cut it off and condense it into smaller chunks. So enjoy this conversation and stay tuned for more.
People look at that mirror, and that's what that gentleman that I'm participating in his healing went through yesterday, where he realized that the fact that he didn't want to tell his mom meant that he still had an issue regarding his heart attack. And until that issue is removed,
Came to me when you were sharing that was that he had an issue with his mom conversing or sharing something. So
well,
yeah, there's all these aspects.
you're not going to heal if
Yeah.
you are approaching it subconsciously as if you're not healed. I mean, why would you be afraid of talking to your mother about something which isn't an issue? You're afraid of talking with your mother because something is still subconsciously an issue. And when there's hesitancy or reluctance, this is a sign to look within, not to control your outside world.
Right.
Wayne Dyer is a profound source of inspiration for a lot of people. And one of his talks that he was talking with, I think when he did the Tao, Wayne Dyer's translation and interpretation of the Tao teaching, and he talks about this blind woman that was moving into an old folks home, and he says that this blind woman was smiling in the foyer, all happy, and they came out and said, "Oh, Mrs. Smith, have you seen your room? Is that why you're smiling?" She said, "Young man, I'm blind. I can't see my room. No, I haven't seen it yet, and I'm happy because I decide to be happy when I wake up in the morning." And when you have decided to be happy, then everything that comes into you, you're putting through that filter. When you understand that it's an ontological universe, this is you having a conversation with you. Why did you have to have this message delivered to you in this way? Why did you find yourself to this particular source of the knowledge and not some other source? Well, probably because you needed to work on things that this would cause you to work on. And judging it is where we waste so much of our time and energy, judging the perfection of creation. And it's like, instead of standing back and going, "Oh, look at that amazing jungle, is perfect," let's study perfection and realize that all these components, all these little insects that are fighting each other, all these little plants that are fighting each other, well, they're not really fighting each other. They're doing so in a way which is actually strengthening the whole entire thing. Wow. So then we can open ourselves to see more of the divine perfection of creation. When you're in a judgy mind frame and you're like, "Well, he could have been and she should have been," well, who are you? You sound like you've been fucking elected to be the judge, jury, and executioner of all that is. It's ridiculous. Maybe that's why you're having problems in your fucking life. There's been many times where people have said to me, "Well, your message could be more widely received if you did this or did that." Don't care. Don't want the extra work. I don't really, this isn't about
Proving yourself.
or getting a mass audience. I don't really
Yeah.
like, who would want that? I don't care. This is happening because it is time to reach more people due to certain cosmic events about to occur. It is not about changing the delivery of the message. I tend to respect how things are. I tend to understand that if things weren't a little bit challenging, even in my own pursuit of this path, there was challenges put in place. Why? Well, to see how sincere I was. If you really want to save the whales, then you're not going to bitch about the people you're sharing the boat with. Because if you do, you don't really want to save the whales. You want to bitch about things not being perfect. Why? Maybe you're a control freak. You need to control everything. So the point of that other analogy, though, with the old lady was that she said, and this is the part I left off, "Young man, my state of mind doesn't depend on how my room's arranged. I decide to be happy." The point of this is nobody has a right to control the outside world.
Mm.
You only have a right to be sovereign of your internal world. And that means that nobody can make you feel anything. You allow yourself to feel things.
Mhm.
That is where you are justified in being sovereign, is within the terrain and the topography of your internal world. If you think that your happiness means that you need to arrange the furniture a certain way, then all you do is justify being a tyrant. Well, I have to control my environment so I can be happy. Right. There's a few other people who did that, right? And we call them dictators because they're control freaks. So, how can we be happy if we're always needing to control everything external to us?
Right.
When we realize that this is an ontological universe and it's happening because we're in conversation with ourself, our divine self, and whatever happens, however happens, as all the near death experiencers will tell you when you look at it, it was because that was the best way. So there was one near death experiencer who had a really shitty life. She went on the other side. She's like, I'm not going back. That was like, I lived a terrible life. And they're like, you need to go back and finish your exploration slash training. And well, I don't want to go back in that body. That body is too racked with pain. And they said, well, you can choose between these three other bodies. And when she looked, all those three other bodies would have had a worse upbringing. And that's what people don't understand. There's no escaping your particular path. You can pause it, but if your soul has to deal with something so that you can learn something so you can overcome it, you will deal with it. And utilizing the mechanisms of creation, they'll bring these things to you so you can deal with it, so you can let go of your issues. So a lot of times people get triggered by healers. The
Right.
healer will trigger them so that they can work on something they never knew they needed to work on.
And that's the whole point of healing.
Right. And it requires the healer to be like Batman. There's a famous quote at the end of one of the Batman movies with Bruce Nolan where they're like, somebody says, oh, the world needs a hero. And he says, no. Commissioner Gordon says, no, the world doesn't need a hero. The world needs a dark knight where we can hang our fears on. Somebody so courageous that they're willing to be painted by your fears.
Right.
Those are perhaps some of the least popular aspects of being a hero is that, or a healer, is that people will vomit onto you all their issues.
Yep.
And utilizing, usually healers go through a path where they have to become so aware of who they are that they're not affected by other people's projections onto them.
Right. Aware of who
Okay.
themselves are,
Right,
they
right,
themselves are. Yeah.
right. So that you can be sovereign within
Right.
yourself and
Right.
not be moved thither or dither depending on people's viewpoint of you. Because if that's all you are, is a balloon made up of what other people think about you, well, I think your life is going to be quite miserable. And
Mhm.
right. And there's been people who come here, get triggered, they meet me, they get triggered, they learn nothing other than this isn't for them. There's other people who come here, get triggered, release something, and go, oh my God, I just had an amazing experience. I'm of service. I don't really care. This isn't about what I get. I realized long ago that I was in service to this process and I would be a janitor or wherever it needed me to be, with whomever it needed me to be with.
Mhm.
And so all I can say is in my own journey of discovery, whenever I was confronted by, wait a minute, it's not supposed to be like this, that was just a test of my convictions
Mm.
because it is like this. So what does that mean? It means that universe needed it to be this way. Maybe rather than judging, you should be learning. Now, having said all that, the comments are welcome. This is what this was designed to do, is bring up all these things. People can feel free to throw all their issues out there, and as time permits, we'll go through them. But remember, the big main thematic point of this is communicating how to use the Earth grid and how it was used before to create bounty and peace wherever you are on the planet.
Yeah.
And that is essential because without that foundation, you can't go forth and manifest your purpose with a strong foundation. When you have nutrient dense food and you have a harmonious home, the journey becomes amazing. So, what are the engineering principles, the rules that allow this to happen? That is what we're here to do. If we get into the semantics of how in my life I became aware that I was this person, or how in my life other sources have validated, that it just opens up a whole bunch of sticking points, which people aren't qualified
Mm-hmm.
to know. Carlos Castaneda, when he talks about meeting Don Juan, are you going to sit there and then take apart Don Juan, or any story of anybody meeting any teacher? Were you going to take apart that teacher still had to fucking crap twice a day, and their craps were stinky, and that meant they weren't a teacher? Or are we going to look at the essence of their information?
Right.
Okay. And that's what's important.
Right. So I
So,
think after we've addressed this, we don't
yeah.
need to address it again.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it warrants just a little more examination, but then that's good. And then get into some of the meat and potatoes. What I really want to encourage is for people to comment. We discussed off camera. This isn't just a conversation with me and you. You and I have had hundreds of hours, if not tipping on 1,000 hours of conversation.
Right.
It is I'm facilitating this dialogue, and also to have people get engaged, ask the questions. Any question I would challenge, and I can review them. We can review them together, and it's a conversation with you as well as with everyone and anyone else out there that wants to get into this dialogue.
And it's really a conversation with the universe. And that's what even what Cliff will talk about in terms of the process. That is called recognizing the qualia. When the universe is talking to you, it will do so in a particular way, which brings up a lot of synchronicities. And so those mechanisms, and then how can we distill this into an actionable plan to start to implement this on the planet?
Yeah.
This is going to happen anyway. And I
Yes.
would recommend people check out Howard Storm on the future. This is a near-death experiencing person that was an atheist. He died, I believe, for 20 minutes. And when he was on the other side, he was shown the future of the Earth 200 years from now. And let's just say it's going to look a lot more like the elves in the Lord of the Rings than it does Blade Runner. So when he was like, but how do we go from here to there in 200 years? Well, all of what we know will collapse and be replaced by other systems and structures. And this is an organic process. And when you're telling the truth, time is your ally.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a con man or a fast talking salesman, time is your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So don't believe, I don't care. We'll see as time rolls on what's happening. And to date, let's just say that track record of what I was saying was going to happen is very far from what my parents said was going to happen. And I have gone from looking like a crackpot to a visionary. So I'm not really, more time the better. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm no bullshitter and I'm no liar. So you can take all the time in the world to figure this out. And remember,
Get into it.
Remember, the person telling the truth always has the last laugh. So,
well, I appreciate our conversations, and as more people get exposed to them, we'll dialogue more and we'll get into more. And we do want to share the meat and potatoes, or the nitty-gritty of how some of these things can be implemented, so that people can literally watch it and go, hey, you know what? I'm going to go try it. We can do that. We want to do that. But a lot of just these first initial conversations are just more or less introductions, more or less explaining where we're at now, maybe how or why we got here, and what we can do just in terms of immediate trying to turn that around, and so that we get on the path that we're meant to.
And there's other teachers out there, like I said, mentioned Dr. Jack Cruz, Cliff High.
I'll put more links in. There are some initial links. We've got the Harmony Project link.
So there are people who, if they're not benefiting from the particular stylistic way this is done, they can go off on their own.
Although Cliff High and Jack Cruz are very similar to yourself and how you deliver them. So they dire.
Right. And to confess, I aim for a Venn diagram between two enlightened masters that were influential in my life, and that is Bill Hicks, the comedian Bill Hicks, and the comedian George Carlin.
Yeah.
And both of those people speak in a slightly irreverent manner, because a lot of times people need to be slapped with a wet fish in their face to wake up. And this is all meant to be done and delivered with a humorous smile.
Right.
Anybody who knows me a little bit more than an introductory phase will know that I have that kind of energy in everything I say, as it's a joke being played upon itself. And if you ever want to hear the best expression of what reality is in about 3 minutes, go to a YouTube short called Bill Hicks on Drugs. And I think it's about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. He will express exactly what reality is. And it's done in a beautiful, hilarious way. That's an example of a master. Yet people might not like the fact that he smoked a shit ton of cigarettes
Right.
because he doesn't conform to your idea of mastery.
Right.
Well, that's
Right.
your problem. It's not Bill Hicks's problem, right? And so the Harmony Project is there. The science, why this stuff works. I have written 4 articles that were published in a newsletter that goes out to, I think it's 2,000 organic farmers through a company and a business called Farmer Direct.
Mm-hmm.
And they're aiming to change the way food distribution is done and help bring about an awareness that food is medicine. So all of this sort of stuff dovetails together. The thing about the Harmony Project is it's a fractal inclusive system. And what I mean is it's not exclusionary. Fractal means infinitely scalable. That's what fractal means.
Mm-hmm.
And inclusive means that everybody's passion can be included in this process. It doesn't all have to be the same thing. So if your passion is pottery, for example, then that is a leaf on that tree.
Mm-hmm.
This is just about creating the systems and structures to bring this about in locations all over the planet. And the world doesn't need more speakers, and I understand the irony of here I am speaking, or more books. It needs more living examples of the truth.
Right.
And when you walk into a community that embraces this science, the reality will be undeniable. Nobody will need to talk to you. Nobody will need to give you a pamphlet or a book. When you drink the water, you'll feel it instantly absorb into you. When you sleep, you'll have the best sleeps ever. When you eat the food, it will be the best food ever. This is the ultimate way of instruction through experiential reality. And this is the ultimate aim of the Harmony Project.
Right.
And is it a coincidence that it totally lines up with another person that was here doing the same thing thousands of years ago? No, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. But if you need it to be a coincidence so you can feel happy, go right ahead.
It's great.
Yeah, like I said, you can call me whatever you want. I don't really care. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And I hope everybody understands that being here now is a sign of confidence and validation, the likes of which you could never imagine. Because the universe allowing you to incarnate here on this planet right now is akin to being given a very special place next to a woman having birth. It is a privileged position. And if people understood this, then they wouldn't need to be validated everywhere, because you are validated simply by the fact that you're here now.
Yes.
All right. So
Awesome. All right.
have a wonderful day.
Yes. You as well.